Call to order the City Council work session for City of East Grand Forks for August 8th, 2023. It's now 5 o'clock. City Clerk, please call roll.
Here.
Council President Olstad.
Here.
Council Vice President Henry.
Here.
Councilmembers Galstad.
Here.
Ben Hodgkinski.
Here.
Dale Holmes.
Here.
Brian Larson.
Here.
Karen Peterson. Here.
Does term quorum. Number 1, review proposed engineering service contract for Widseth. In your packet, and also Megan sent out, handed out the fee schedule with the added language on the bottom of that. Contract is the same as what we had before. No changes in it, other than for the year 24 and 25, our increase, no increase will exceed 3% per year. So before, we did not have any cap on it. This year, we worked with Mr. Emery and Widseth to work out an agreement that 24 and 25 would not exceed 3% increases. So, which would be probably an average, a little bit lower than the normal increases. So, but, does anybody have any questions on it?
Yes, I would just say I want to thank you and your team over there at Widseth for dealing in good faith. Every bit of information we wanted along the way, you guys provided it so we could make a good informed choice. And just want to say thanks again for the good work that you do and for, again, the good faith negotiation to get to this point. Thanks.
Thank you to everyone.
Okay, now we'll move on to the next one if no one has any questions. Number 2, review a proposed legal services contract for Mr. Galstad. Also, within that agreement that was in your packet, same as what we've had before, Mr. Galstad and met with the mayor and I and went through the agreement. I think the only thing that was added in there was a agreement that Mr. Galstad would work with the city of Crookston and hopefully do some cost sharing for both of us, and that hopefully that will help reduce our fees for legal services. So I want to thank Mr. Galstad for that, for stepping up and seeing what he can do for us. So if everybody has any questions on that, I don't know if Mary, you want to add anything or not?
I guess to that I would say, Ron, thanks again for the good rate that you give. We're well below your standard rate hourly, and also for working hard to find that savings that we talked about in the shared time with Crookston. And I guess I'd say one other thing, if anyone else is listening from the court system, COVID brought in a Zoom court scenario that in one way could save time. It would be, of course, less people congested in one area for the spread of the pandemic, and it may, in theory, save some time if it could save some people's commute time. But in effect, it really added cost for us. And the way it added cost is extended the number of hours that we were expected to be vigilant in their court down, up from a day or two up to 3 or 4 days. It really expanded the amount of time that we're supposed to sit and watch the court proceedings. We'd love to see it go back how it was pre-COVID, where you can go face-to-face for a much shorter, more finite period of time and help all these cities, counties, everybody contain cost. It's time to go back how it was and not continue the Zoom court, which is, again, very wasteful for us. Thanks.
Anybody have any questions on that at all? See none. Move on to number 3, consider the request for salary adjustment. Chief Hedlund, if you want to walk through it first.
Thank you, Mr. President. Officer Lance Callanan was hired about 2.5 years ago. At that point in time, he was brought in at our step 3, which had typically been our standard lateral officer starting wage. We had the previous year brought in Officer Justin Rue formerly from the Crookston Police Department at a step higher. They did have comparable experience, but Lance's was spread out over a couple different agencies. And for whatever reason, it was just kind of an oversight on my part that I didn't request a higher wage for him when he first started. And he also did not request one himself. So we kind of just brought him in at what had been our status quo of step 3. We recently hired another officer also with significant experience and also understanding that it is a little bit different hiring environment right now. Brought this most recent officer with significant experience in at a step 5, which was comparable to her previous wage at her former employer. when Officer Callan became aware of that, he came to me and made a request that an adjustment be made to his salary. We've had some conversations since that time, and ultimately it resulted in this request to have him brought up to a one-step pay increase with retroactive pay and benefits costs from the January 1st of this year. There's a separate addition there that Mr. Huttunen was able to provide, or Carla or Terry, I guess I'm not sure who provided that information, but the total cost would be about $3,652.72 for 2023. And then he would be at step 5 moving forward.
I also want to add too, just so everybody's on the same page, when this process started, we did go back to the officer in chief and then said we need to make sure, and he has some of that in here, to go through the right process with the union to make sure that we're following their proper procedures and not circumventing any of the processes that we do, because if one person does it, next person does it, why do they have a union? And wanted to make sure, and as he put in there, the representative, Mr. Henning, was it?
Yes.
Was okay with us discussing it. Didn't feel it was a issue that needed to file a grievance or anything process. And I know that it could have went either way, but I know that the mayor and I and chief did walk through this, talked about it. And that's why we're here today looking at it, just so everybody knows what the process was. It wasn't just that he came in and wanted to, and we're bringing it to you to have a discussion on it, but it was something that we want to make clear that everything that happens, something like this, has to go back through the union, has to follow the processes. We don't want anybody else coming out saying, well, I want this too, but it was, I guess, discussed and asked numerous times if there was any issues with the other officers, and my understanding there is none.
No, there shouldn't be. This puts Lance in play where anybody else with comparable experience is going to be paid the same or more than him. The only other officers that could conceivably have been given a step increase to kind of along these same circumstances because of their experience were in the early days of our having been with the lateral transfer program, and they're already at top pay, so there isn't anywhere for them to go. And they understand that you can't go, you can only do the back pay thing for so long. So it's not realistic for those folks to be going after anything. That wasn't the practice. It changed in 2020, and for whatever reason it just wasn't caught with Lance's hire.
And also note, too, that the only reason the mayor and I were involved in it is that the process that we still had started the process. We didn't want Ms. Nelson in that position with this, and that we took it on in discussion with the chief. So
Exactly.
just so everybody knows the process. So anybody have any questions on it? See none, sir.
Thank you.
Move on to number 4, consider amending City Code Section 98.35 regarding weed and grass. Mr. Galstad.
This is just an ordinance. It's updating our weed and grass ordinance. The state of Minnesota came out with essentially a mandate just recently where we'll just call them wildflowers or whatever shall be allowed in the state for, actually, I guess would be gardens, replacing lawns, those types of things. So this is controlling that. The state statute also had, rather than our previous statute or ordinance had a 6-inch height differential, the state statute had 8 inches. So I modified it just to follow the state statute for height. It also provides that even if you did have these wildflowers, we'll say, you can't let them get inundated with any of the weeds. Otherwise, it becomes a weed garden, and we would be able to control that. And it also describes not only weeds, but the state Department of Agriculture has lists when you go online of noxious weeds and weeds that are to be eradicated, and I've listed that in there as well. as weeds. Now, the mayor ought to be very happy about this because the state statute also, because we're a town that doesn't have a weed expert, names the mayor of the city as the weed expert to be able to
I'm all over it.
go out and inspect these and determine which ones are noxious weeds. So that being said, if you have any questions, it's just to bring it up to the new legislation that was just passed recently in this last session.
You were looking at the agenda and read that, this could go either way, why, if he was appointed, given what's going on.
Thank you.
Dale?
Mr. Galstad, is this what's going on the Simplot property there on the north end of Second Avenue Northeast there? Are they calling it wildflowers or something? Because it's quite high there. They normally don't let that get that way, but.
Mr. Helms, this is the first time that I've been notified of that, and if there is, we can take a look at it and have the mayor run over there.
Yeah, because they're quite tall. I'm sure the mayor's probably seen them too. He's right down there.
Have our, talk to Nancy and have the nuisance officer take a look
Because
at
they've always
it.
kept that mowed up pretty nice normally, and it's.
So I'm not sure. I'll have to take a look.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Anybody else have anything? I see none. Okay, we'll move on. Consider request to set electric scooter licensing fees. Mr. Huttunen.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Ms. Nelson has been really involved in this communication too and has carried this through. So I'll do my best to carry it forward with the communication she's had. You had the ordinance on the meeting last week, and Mr. Galstad mentioned that the city of Grand Forks has an application fee of $2,000 and an annual license renewal of $500 for scooter companies to operate in the city. So that's, I think, the final step for us that we need to set in place with the application form that's included in the packet is just if there's any recommendation or thought process from any of you on what an appropriate fee would look like for that. In discussion with Ms. Nelson, just kind of brainstorming, the full fleet size in Grand Forks is limited to 400 scooters. Our fleet size is limited to 100. I don't know if that needs to have any consideration in what a fee or an application fee could look like, if it's prorated to a similar degree. And then I think I didn't get a chance to talk with Mr. Galstad about what kind of legal fees we've had involved in this, but I could see potentially a higher application fee just to try to accommodate or cover some of that expense that we've accumulated. So open for any feedback that anybody might have.
Any thoughts on that? Mr. Larson?
I guess I would think that we have a lot of the same fixed costs as the city of Grand Forks with the legal review and the administrative effort, regardless of how many scooters there are. So I would think it would make sense to be consistent with their fee structure.
I was thinking the same thing, so I mean, I don't have a problem with that structure. I mean, Mr. Better, you good with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Anybody else have anything for? Thank you, sir. Move on to request to appoint interim Parks and Rec Superintendent. Mr. Huttunen.
Thanks again, Mr. President. We've had some good internal discussion. We sent out a citywide email after it was official that I was to be transitioning out of the Parks and Rec role, asking any city employees to express interest in the interim position. Mr. King stepped forward as one that was interested. He was the only city employee that officially said they were interested in the position. I did have some discussion with other city employees that some of you may be wondering about. We had a good discussion, but ultimately Jeremy was the only one that wanted to move forward with this. That said, I think Mr. King is a wonderful candidate. The type of skill set that Jeremy has, I think translate really well to the projects and the different type of work and staff management that we need to have in the interim basis to be able to carry some of the work through that I was really actively involved in. And I feel confident that on the recreation side of things, where Mr. King may lack in some of the experience, that we have really strong and capable staff that are ready and willing to carry that forward as well. So with that, I would recommend that we would name Mr. King as the interim superintendent. And with your approval, he would start transitioning into that role on Wednesday, August 16th.
Maybe go through the process of how if he moves up, who takes over, I guess, Mr. Stordahl process too, of how you would handle that. I guess everybody's comfortable that we have enough coverage and going forward that how things would work.
Yeah,
I'm sure everybody, it's on everybody's mind how this is going to work if he's sliding somebody over, so.
I think I'll let Jason speak on that and can add to it if I need.
Yeah, so right now the way that it works is if Jeremy's gone, our lead equipment operator steps into that role and acts as a foreman in any time that Jeremy's out of the office, and that's what we would intend to do. We would move Josh Cross up to that position, and then Jeremy could fill him in or kind of train him on anything that he might need to know. Jeremy'd still be obviously around, so anytime we needed him, he could stop in. He's going to be connected through his computer. So it wouldn't be like we're losing him right away or anything like that. So that's what we would intend to do, I guess.
And normally in the past, if someone did move up, they would move up and bump in pay for that position. From the lead.
So they'd move up to a foreman, which would be a bump in pay, and then in this case, Josh Cross would be out of his position, so we'd bump somebody up into a lead, and then they would be paid at that level.
Questions? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. What's the timeline to permanently fill the position?
Yeah, great question. The posting is out now for advertisement. It closes August 28th. September, civil service and hopefully final interviews with city council to make a selection. The best case scenario that we've laid out would be middle of October that a person would be able to be in the role of the permanent park and rec superintendent. That may, depending upon who the applicant is and if they have a move involved, those are certainly scenarios that could extend that out towards the end of October, but fastest scenario we see is mid-October.
Say Mr. King gets that position, if he's even interested in doing it on a permanent basis. How long does it take to fill his position?
It would probably be roughly about the same time. Yeah. Yep, just kind of goes down the chain. And then we would be filling another position as,
You'd be doing two positions, basically.
we'd be filling two positions.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else, sir?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Mayor?
They're good problems to have when you have people, we really appreciate our team of employees and contractors and everybody that we work with. And it looks like you all feel the same way. When an opening comes and you want to stay put and maybe move up inside the organization, these are really good problems to have. So I want to thank all our department heads, certainly David Murphy and everybody that has helped to create that environment where you're getting your work done, you're having fun doing it, and you want to stick around. We like that.
Mr. Helms?
Thank you, Mr. President. Is Jeremy looking to just step in to be in the interim, or, is he going to be losing the job he had with Jason, or is he, if somebody else gets hired for that position, is he going to go back to the streets, or what, or is he?
Well, Jeremy's here. Jeremy, if you're comfortable.
I've seen the gentleman, but I
Yeah.
didn't know that was him, but that's fine.
I don't want to put you on the hot seat, Jeremy, but if you're willing, I think you'd be better to speak on it than I would.
Yeah, I do plan on applying for the job full-time, but in the interim basis. And we would just kind of, like Jason stated, fill up, and then if the position was awarded to somebody else, then I'd go back to my supervisor position at the Public Works, and then we just go right back into the same positions.
And I guess I would add to that Jeremy and I have had numerous conversations about this over the course of the last 5 or 6 days, and I feel confident and trusting in Jeremy, having worked with him for the years I have, that he fully understands the process that this hiring is going through, and that we are advertising externally for this position. He certainly has every ability to be a candidate for it that anybody else does, but Jeremy tells me that he is fully understanding and aware that the end result could be that he ends up back in the Public Works Supervisor role, and he says that he is comfortable and happy with that. So I trust him, and I think that this could be a good result at the end for everybody.
I guess that's my concern. If they're going to move other people up into his spot and do everything else, is everybody going to be comfortable with all this changing back and, you know what I'm saying? That's what was kind of my question, if everybody would be.
Like Reid said, we've had a lot of internal discussion. I've talked with all the guys down at Public Works. They understand, everyone kind of understands how the process works. I think it's a real good opportunity to do a lot of cross-training within the city, and I don't think that there would be any hard feelings no matter what the outcome is.
Anybody else have anything? Good deal. What do you have? Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to give you just a quick update. Waited a long time to get materials scheduled from the contractor, but right now they're planning to do that work on Thursday, maybe going into Friday of this week, but within 1 or 2 days this week, they should get that work completed. So we'll have that left turn signal if you want to head over to Grand Forks. So I think that'll be a nice addition at that intersection. And then just, Tyzak was supposed to be back this week, putting up the Hawk system. They had a foreman that unexpectedly quit on them. So they've had to kind of shuffle their crews around, so they won't be back until next Monday. But their goal still is to have all the work completed by Friday the 18th or whatever. So they did give me a letter, because the completion day was August 11th. They gave me a letter requesting a 1-week extension. So I figured, you know, losing a foreman kind of out of their control a little bit. So just wanted to let you know that we unfortunately won't see any activity at that intersection this week, but hopefully wrapped up by the end of next week. So still a couple weeks ahead of school. Good.
Thank you, sir. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move.
Moved by Larson. Second by Helms. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried, means adjourned.
John.